You think it's just a sentence, just a word you said to avoid conflict. A small shift in the story, a necessary rewrite, but your body noticed. Your heart skipped, your jaw clenched, your breath tightened, and in that moment, your nervous system filed the truth away like a threat. Let's talk about what happens inside you when you lie. Not just the big lies, not the betrayals or the secrets that split families, even the small ones, the ones you tell to protect feelings, to avoid shame, to keep the peace. Your body doesn't care how noble your reason is. It reacts because to the nervous system, a lie is an alarm. Let's start with the basics. The stress response. The moment you lie, your brain enters conflict. Two truths now exist in your head. What actually happened, what you said happened, and your brain, especially the prefrontal cortex, has to work overtime to keep them separate. That effort, it burns energy, raises cortisol, activates the amygdala, which means your body thinks you're in danger. Let's talk about microreactions. Most people don't notice them, but your body reveals them anyway. A brief blink delay, a millisecond smirk, a dry swallow, a slight shoulder shrug, a shift in vocal pitch. These aren't tells for a poker game. They're evidence of internal conflict. Your body is trying to contain a contradiction, and it leaks through your movements. Even if no one sees it, your nervous system does. Let's talk about memory distortion. When you lie, you start to forget. Not just the lie itself, but the original event, because the more you rehearse the lie, the more it becomes the dominant narrative. And your brain, in its terrifying adaptability, rewrites memory to match the story. But your body remembers. It remembers where tension locked into your shoulders, where shame settled in your gut, where heat flushed across your face when you first said it out loud. The truth doesn't disappear. It just retreats and waits. Let's talk about guilt and its physical footprint. Even if you don't feel guilty, your body might. Long-term dishonesty doesn't just affect conscience. It affects health. Studies show elevated heart rate, decreased immune response, increased inflammation, disrupted sleep, chronic anxiety, not because you're weak, but because your body was designed to operate in coherence. And every lie fractures that alignment. Let's talk about who you become after lying. You don't just carry the story. You carry a mask. In that mask, it has weight. You start filtering every word, calculating what you've said to whom, protecting the web you've spun. It's exhausting. But more than that, it starts to change your sense of self. You stop trusting your instincts. You feel disconnected from your voice. You question what's real, not because you're confused, but because your story is fractured. And your body knows the fracture is dangerous. Let's pause. You think lying is about managing other people. But more than that, it's about surviving the moment. And sometimes, survival means betraying the truth. But the truth doesn't go quietly. It lives in your cells, in your breath, in your heartbeat, waiting, reacting, reminding you. You can hide it from others. You can even hide it from your mind. But your body always keeps the receipt. There's a different kind of lie, not the kind you tell to others, not the kind that needs to be spoken out loud, but the kind you whisper inside your own mind. You say, I'm fine. It's not that bad. I've moved on. They didn't mean it. I'm over it. But your body flinches because it knows. Let's talk about self-deception, the most dangerous form of lying. You lie to survive, to protect the people you love, to protect your place in the world, to avoid the grief that would shatter your structure. You push truth down, so far down that it no longer has words. But it doesn't vanish. It leaks through migraines, through insomnia, through digestive issues, through panic attacks that come out of nowhere. Your body becomes the voice or the truth you silenced. Let's talk about somatic storage. When you suppress emotion, Your body doesn't forget it. It encodes it. Anger you couldn't express, it shows up as jaw tension, as acid in your gut, as blood pressure that creeps higher each year, sadness you never released. It weighs in your chest. It drains your limbs. It dulls your senses like a slow sedative. Fear that was never soothed, it lives in your breath. Shallow, quick, cautious. You say you're safe now, but your lungs don't believe you. Let's talk about dissonance. Dissonance is the space between what's true and what you allow yourself to admit. It's the pressure of two realities, fighting for control inside you. And that tension, it becomes chronic. It hardens into muscle memory. It slows digestion. It disrupts immune function. It wears down your resilience because your body was never designed to carry unspoken truths forever. Let's talk about how the body creates symptoms when the psyche refuses reality. You tell yourself you're happy, but you wake with dread. You tell yourself you're over them, but you ache when you hear their name. You tell yourself you're not angry, but you grind your teeth in your sleep. This isn't dysfunction. It's communication. Your body is trying to finish the sentence. Your mind won't start. Let's talk about why people stay in denial. Because truth costs. It threatens the stories you've used to feel safe. They were good parents. I deserved it. I chose this. It was my fault. These stories hurt, but they're structured, predictable, comfortable. The truth? The truth might change everything. It might mean someone you love failed you. It might mean everything you built was a survival mechanism. It might mean starting over with no map. So you lied to yourself, not because you're weak, but because you were strong for too long. Let's talk about what happens when the body finally says no more. It doesn't ask for your permission. It breaks down, forces rest, forces slowness, forces stillness, so the truth can rise to the surface. You think it's burnout. You think it's anxiety. You think it's random illness. But maybe it's a message. And maybe it's saying, we can't keep living in this lie. Something inside you is begging to be known. Let's pause. You think healing is about fixing symptoms, but real healing starts with honesty. Not the kind you confess to others, but the kind you whisper, finally, to yourself. Even if it breaks the story, even if it changes everything, even if it hurts. Because the cost of denial is always greater than the cost of truth. There are moments when your body betrays you, or so it feels. You're speaking calmly, and your hands shake. You're smiling, and your heart races. You say everything's fine, and your throat tightens so hard, you can't breathe. But that's not betrayal. That's truth trying to survive. Let's talk about how the body becomes the witness. When the mind becomes a liar, you've spent years crafting stories, rehearsing versions of events that feel safer, telling yourself you were never hurt, never scared, never angry. You've built a fortress of calm, of politeness, of performance, but inside, your nervous system never stops screaming. And eventually, it finds a way out. Let's talk about involuntary exposure. When you've buried a truth for too long, your body starts to push it out through places you can't control. You stutter when someone gets too close to the truth. You cry during arguments that don't seem that bad. You sweat when someone asks a question you didn't expect. Your voice cracks when you say, I love you, because you're not sure it's true. This isn't weakness. This is a biological rebellion. Your body refuses to keep lying for you. Let's talk about emotional flashbacks. You're not in danger, not anymore, but your body doesn't care. It remembers, and it pulls the fire alarm when it senses anything that feels familiar to the old trauma. A tone of voice, a smell, a phrase, a silence, and suddenly your rational mind is gone. You're sweating, panicking, shaking, collapsing, Because your body isn't living in today. It's back in then. And all it knows is that the lie, the one where you pretend you're fine, is killing you. Let's talk about what happens when you stop fighting it. When you stop silencing the symptoms. When you stop pathologizing the panic. When you stop blaming yourself for falling apart, you realize something terrifying and liberating. The body is not your enemy. It's your oldest ally. It never wanted to ruin your life. It wanted to save it. It got loud only because you ignored the whispers. It collapsed because you refused to rest. It broke down because breaking the truth was never an option. Let's talk about what a body looks like when it finally tells the truth. It trembles. It shakes. It releases sobs you didn't know were inside you. It convulses through grief that was never processed. It floods with emotions that never had names. And for the first time, you stop trying to control it. You let it speak. You let it cry. You let it break. Because in that breaking, there's finally something honest. And in that honesty, a kind of peace begins to form. Let's talk about what living in truth feels like. It's not perfection. It's not always joy, but it's ease. It's congruence. It's not having to remember which story you told, whom. It's walking into a room without bracing. It's feeling the ground under your feet and knowing it's real. It's silence without tension. It's connection without performance. It's breathing all the way down. Let's close with this. You thought lying would protect you. You thought silence would keep you safe. You thought pretending would buy you peace. But the body always knew. And now you're learning to trust it. Because truth isn't just something you tell. It's something you live. And finally, you're ready to live.